All right. So Linda's already kind of given a little bit of an introduction. Um, this is a little bit about me. I live in Anchorage, Alaska. Haven't lived here my whole life, but it's a little piece of heaven that my family and I really enjoy. It's beautiful today. We have the sun shining. I'm going fishing on Friday. I mean, I just love it here. So if you haven't been to Alaska yet, please let me know when you do. I'd love to show you around. Okay, but today is about you. All right, it's all about you guys. That's why I'm here. We're going to, one, discover the money, why we make the money mistakes we do. We're going to master some key numbers. Okay, metrics, I was told, is jargon. So I'm turning that from metrics into numbers. We're going to get excited to look at the books every month, or at least every quarter. Okay. And what that's going to do is allow you to step into that CEO role with confidence. You're the business owner, you're the boss lady, whatever you want to call yourselves. You're the one that calls all the shots. Okay. And you can't do that without the numbers. So we need to know why your numbers are the way they are and how we can use that as ammunition and power and fuel to make these good decisions. Okay. All right. This is my first question for you guys. And you don't have to share if you don't want to, but if you're comfortable, go ahead and throw it in the chat there. I want to know what your earliest money memory is. Your earliest money memory. Okay. So I'll let you know my earliest money memory. And this kind of goes into that Simon Sinek why, my why, right? So when I was younger, my parents always fought about money. They did. So whether we had money or didn't have money, that wasn't the point. They put their relationship issues into talking about money. So I'm the oldest of three kids. I've got two younger brothers. And so growing up, I always thought money was kind of like evil, or we just didn't want to talk about it, or whatever it was. Okay. So fast forward, I made every mistake under the sun when it came to money in my early adult years. I mean, every mistake. And I finally realized, there has to be a better way to do this. There has to be, money can't be all that evil. Maybe, I don't know. So I decided I'm going to learn everything I can about this thing called money, figure out how it works, and then I'm going to go teach it to other people. And that's why I do what I do. I'm the oldest kid. So again, I'm right all the time, right? My middle brother, he's a Marine officer. He could take probably all of us here in this room and he could put us on a board and bench press us. He's just strong. He's put his hands in people that were dying and trying to stop the bleeding, all this. When it comes to money, he is so deathly afraid of it. He doesn't want to touch it. Same experience, but just a different interpretation, right? So he gives all the money to his wife, who thankfully is a good steward of money, and says, just give me an allowance, pull out my 20s when I need them, and you take care of everything. I just don't want anything to do with money. Okay. Are you like that maybe? Or maybe like my youngest brother, he said, you know what? The answer is we should all be bazillionaires, and then there is no money problem, right? Which I don't know. I've known a lot of people, a lot of women business owners that make over $1 million in take-home pay, and more money, more problems, right? I mean, it's true what they say. So I just bring this up because I want you to know that the way that you are working with your money today, what you spend your money on today, has a direct correlation to how you grew up with money. Okay. So we need to address that first, and we need to understand why it is that we make mistakes, or why we have certain feelings when we go out and buy things. Okay. So kind of think about that and how that's shaping you today. Anyone feel comfortable sharing? Angela says, I just got a job and had to ask my dad for money for the bus and train until I got paid. And he'd count out exactly what I needed, nothing more. Yeah. You want to tell us more about that?
Oh, I hated it. So, it was so long ago, and he would literally count out, you need 10 dimes for the train and, 2 quarters for the bus, whatever it was. And it would be just that. And I thought, what happens if I lost a dime? Yeah, I was 14 when I got my job. So sort of responsible, but not with loose change. And I always worried. I was constantly thinking, what if I misplace a dime? I'm not going to be able to get home from work. So
Yeah.
it was an experience.
No kidding. Yeah, exact change only. Sure, he said my allowance. Yeah.
Yeah, I can. That I mean, I was going to share, Christina. So for me, I remember my parents constantly just being very, very mindful and strict about how much do you spend, when do you spend it, where do you spend it, and it's interesting because in these years I've actually learned to navigate the other way. So I became very present to that, how my relationship to money, and the fact that my parents also they also lived and they came from a place of scarcity. It was always about what's missing, and we had a great great childhood, great life, but it was that, and until today they don't live in that mindset of abundance. So thank God I became present to that. So I've changed a few of those things, but absolutely those are things that I grew up with, and it was like, okay, the money, how do we spend it, and being very mindful about that, which is not always the best way to live life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Maggie, saving money in a small jar in the corner. Oh, really? Does your mom know that?
I think she does. I think she bought me, like, it was one of those bank accounts that counts all the coins for you. But I don't know. I just always remembered it was kind of stored in this corner, but it was never like anyone could come and open that cabinet and just take it as well. It was never like super hidden. So I don't know. That's always just my first picture of it.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, it's very important the way that we grew up with money, like I said, and how it affects us today. So thanks, guys, for sharing. And I know talking about money actually can make us feel vulnerable, right? Can open up some wounds, maybe. There's some feelings of shame or pride or all sorts of feelings. Okay, so let's move on, though. All right, so we're going to answer 5 questions today. 5. Can you pay your bills? How profitable are you? How risky are you? Who's serving whom? And how would you score your business? Okay, that's it. 5. And we're going to revisit this once a month, hopefully, at least once a month, maybe once a quarter. All right. So this is all your homework. All right. The first question I want to know about your business, rhetorically, can you pay your bills? Okay. The finance nerds call this the liquidity ratio. And so if you have your balance sheet, go ahead and pull that up. All right. So companies that have low liquidity are prone to disaster in times like recessions or COVID lockdowns. Okay. We want to make sure that you have enough liquidity to withstand anything that's being thrown your way. So I'll tell you a story about COVID. Yay. In 2020, if you guys remember the first round of PPP loans, many of those PPP loans did not go to the small business owners. They went to large corporations. These large corporations should have had enough liquidity and other resources and capital in their back pocket. They should have been fine, right? They also had a team of accountants, a team of bankers, a team of advisors, all people that were kind of on their board getting paid by them, right? Small businesses did not have that team in place. They didn't have their books in order. They didn't know how to fill out the paperwork. They didn't know where to pull the information from. They did not have enough liquidity to withstand not getting that first round of PPP loans. And so what happened? they went out of business. We all know stories about that, right? Very sad, very true. Okay, so for you, we're going to calculate your current liquidity. All right, this is an example here. Balance sheet might be top, bottom, it might be left, right, basically two sections. One side has your current assets, one side has your current liabilities. The word current means anything within 12 months. Okay, so a current asset is anything that you can convert to cash within a year. So things like your cash, checking, savings, accounts receivable, your inventory, that kind of thing, okay? Current liabilities are things like your short-term loans, credit cards, all right? So what is your number? And it's simple division. If you can't do this in your head, grab your calculator on your phone, all right? In this example here, we have 101,000 divided by 50,000. That gives us a ratio of 2.02. So what does that mean? That means we've got $2 of bills, or I'm sorry, we have $2 of cash to pay every $1 of our current bill. Okay. So who cares? Well, this is the range, okay? Back in the day, they would say, hey, anything from 0.5 to 1 is considered healthy, okay? But remember that story of the first round of PPP loans. A lot of those businesses had healthy liquidity ratios, okay? If you want to be more conservative with this number, I would suggest anything from 1.5 to 2.5, all right? So now my question is, again, so what? How can you improve this? So if you have a lower number than what you think you should have, what do you think you can do to improve this number? Anyone got any ideas? I like awkward silences, by the way.
Maybe any services that you can shop the market to see if you can get lower margins on certain things that you're needing on a consistent basis. Maybe
Yes.
your, social media manager or campaign. Maybe potentially looking at your VA services, those types of things, and what the hours are and the breakdowns of what you're using them for, and adjusting that accordingly if you can.
Yes, that's a great idea, Roxanne. Yeah, thank you. Sarah says increase sales or decrease costs. Yes, right? Simple math. Guys, let's go back to our high school math class, right? It's just division, right? So what we could do, increase our sales or our current assets, decrease the liabilities, right? Angela says cross-sell your services or products. Exactly. How do we get that money, honey? Okay, so good. Okay, second question. How risky are you? How risky? Have you ever thought about this? You're like, oh, I just do financial services. What's the risk in that, right? Okay, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about if you go to a bank, the banker, this is their favorite ratio, they're going to say, how risky are you? Right now for this one, again, on your balance sheet, pull up your balance sheet. We're going to look at the relationship between your equity and your liabilities. Okay, it's a little bit different than the first question. This time, you're going to take your total liabilities, not just your current liabilities. So the last question, we just wanted to know what your current liabilities were. Okay, this one, I want to know everything. Okay, how leveraged are you? And we're going to divide it by equity. Equity is a funny thing because this number, if you see in this example here, right, total shareholders equity 230,000. This may or may not be in your bank account, for example, right? Where the heck is this number? Like, I don't have $230,000 in my checking account or my savings account. Where does this come from? this is basically the blood, sweat, and tears, if you think about it that way, of your business. All that time you didn't pay yourself, all the startup costs that you invested in your company, that's where that number comes from. And your accountant should be tracking all of this for you, okay? So again, simple division. We're going to take total liabilities divided by equity. And in this case, it gives us a ratio of 0.739. Okay. Everyone following along? Nods? Good, good, good. All right, again, so what, right? So back in the day, everyone said, well, if you're, 0 to 1, you're healthy. If you're 1 or more, you're over leveraged. Okay, I'll tell you another story. This one goes back to 2008. 2008, what happened with our economy? Yep. So a lot of the savings and loan institutions went bankrupt overnight. Okay. There were big businesses, guys, big businesses that were doing great. They were having parties. They were celebrating. They had a lot of debt. And I mean a lot of debt. So let's say they had a $10 million note with a bank. All of a sudden, the bank is having to increase their reserves. They're calling all their customers and saying, hey, this is in the fine print that you signed. You have by 8 a.m. to give us back our money. Can you imagine being in that situation, right? And they said, OMG, I don't have $10 million to pay you. What happened to those companies? They went out of business, okay? So if you're thinking, hey, I want to take on a note, get a line of credit, get another credit card, that's great. And for business, this is a wonderful way to actually use that leverage and increase your returns. But I caution you, let's make sure that your debt to equity ratio is not too over leveraged, okay? Does that make sense for everyone? Okay. So again, how can we fix this, right? How can we decrease our risk if we are over leveraged? Any ideas? So some ideas here, if you have too much debt, pay down your debt, okay? That's easy. Make a plan to do it. A lot of small business owners that I know just kind of keep that outstanding debt balance and they don't actually have a plan. Make a plan to get rid of that debt as soon as possible, all right? You can manage your growth a little bit more carefully. Some people like to take on a lot of debt so that they can hire all these people, so they can expand their product and service line. Maybe be a little bit more thoughtful about the way that you are growing and scaling your business. Okay. And then, of course, making sure that you have a high and healthy profit margin, which we'll talk about next. That is also going to help decrease your risk. Okay. Oh, Linda, do not open new credit cards. Amen, girl. Thank you for that. Okay. This is my favorite question for you guys. How profitable are you? Do you really know? All right. There's a saying out there. Tell me if you've heard this before. Revenue is vanity, but profit is sanity. Anyone hear that before? Revenue is vanity, profit is sanity. Guys, I meet some people and are like, oh, I made $1 million last year. Woohoo. Like, oh, good for you. What's your profit margin? What? Listen, I want you all to be able to one day sell your businesses. And you're not going to do that if you're not profitable. I don't care how much revenue you bring in. A buyer isn't going to look at your business and say, oh, great, you made $10 million in revenue, but you had a 0% profit margin. that doesn't look attractive to a buyer, okay? So some things about this, profit is really hard to measure, guys. And there's no one set way to measure profit. We're going to do one of those ways today, but I'll tell you, if you talk to a banker, if you talk to an equity analyst, if you talk to a mergers and acquisitions attorney, they all measure profit differently. But you as the owner and the CEO, you need to decide what works for your company, okay? All right, so let's get into it. For this is in your P&L, profit and loss, also known as your income statement. So it's a little bit more complicated, right? It's the order of operations. We're going to look at the gross profit margin first, okay? So on your profit and loss statement, there should be a revenue line, okay? You're going to take the revenue and you're going to subtract your COGS, also known as the cost of goods sold, okay? So if I brought in $10 of pens, but it cost me $5. That $5 is my cost of goods sold, okay? Divide that again by the revenue, same number as the first one, and then multiply by 100, okay? This example, 60%. Sounds good, right? 60%. Okay, raise your hand if you are a company that makes or sells something. Anyone make or sell something? Yeah? You want to pay attention to your gross profit margin. Okay. Now, raise your hand if you are a service-based company. You sell your services. Okay. You want to pay attention to the net profit margin here on this slide. Okay. The net profit margin is a little bit different because if we're a service-based company and we just did our gross profit margin calculation, we're like, woo woo, we have a really good profit margin. Okay. But we forgot we need to take out that thing called OpEx. OpEx means operating expenses. I'm talking about, when you pay your 1099 contractors, when you pay your rent and utilities and on and all these things that you need in the service-based world. Okay. So you'll see in this example, look at that, gross profit margin, 60%. Hey. Oh, wait, my net profit margin, 5%. Well, not so great anymore, right? Okay, so don't get discouraged, all right? If you are under 10%, there's probably some of you here in this room, that's okay, all right? I'm going to tell you some ways that we can increase this. They used to say like 10 to 15% is healthy, but I know most entrepreneurs, most business owners, like that 50% or more return on invested capital, right? We want really big margins here, okay? So 3 things for you. 1, figure out what other companies that do what you do, what are their margins like? So you're going to have to do some research. Number 2, you get to decide what this number should be. You get to decide if it should be 50% or 20%, okay? You're the owner, you're the CEO. And then number 3, you're going to look at this over time. I hope you do this once a quarter. I hope you have an Excel spreadsheet. I hope you track this, okay? And then assign the story to it. What happened last spring with your profit margin? What happened this summer with your profit margin? All right, assign those stories, okay? Everyone with me? Okay. So this is an example here. So let's see here. I kind of look at P&Ls a little bit differently. If you haven't already figured out, I'm a little bit different than most people in the finance world. But we're going to start here at the bottom, okay? this net profit margin. All right, so this was a client of mine, and you can see where her net profit margin last year, not so great, right? Not so great. So we went and looked, okay, let's look at the income every single month. Look at the income. We look at all of her expenses. That's great. Okay. There's a line here for health insurance, and it's in yellow because she didn't have any health insurance. That was another issue we were working on. And then, you know what she did? She basically just said, okay, at the end of September, whatever cash is left over, that's what I'm going to pay myself. Does that sound familiar to anyone? I don't want to call you out, but okay. So whatever's left over, I'm going to get that salary. Woohoo. All right. So that meant that her profit margins were basically zero. Do you see that? So we went through this exercise and I said, okay, so what should your profit margin be? What's a goal, right? And she said, well, I want that 15% profit margin. I'm like, whoa, hold on, cowgirl. Let's shoot for 6%, right? Let's do like small incremental changes. So we said, okay, 6% here, you see in this column here, and then we work backwards. What does that mean? Well, first of all, it means that we need to figure out what your salary should be. So we got to do a personal budget analysis for your family because she was the primary breadwinner and figure out what her salary should be. So she said $16,000 a month. I said, okay, great. $16,000 a month. That also keeps her in line with the IRS regulations. Okay. So she's also going to hire somebody and contract some of this work out because it's too much for her. We're going to go back up. Still no health insurance, some same costs, expenses. That means she needed this amount in monthly revenue to get to her 6% goal. Okay, everyone following? And then we did the same thing for 15%. Okay, so what if I reached for the moon? What if I said 15%? What should my revenue be? Okay, and then we went backwards with that. Still same salary, and this is her monthly revenue. Okay, so fast forward to Q1 of this year, she blew that out of the water. She was able to actually use leverage and use her contractors to better her client experience, get more work, et cetera, et cetera. We got her health insurance. I mean, her profit margins are off the chart now. Okay, but that's an example of how you use these numbers to figure out, you know, what should my revenue be? What should I charge my clients? On and on. Okay. Okay. All right. So ways to increase profit if you are not quite there. Start with the price that your customer is willing to pay. And I'll go through this exercise really quickly. All right. I've got a pencil and I've got a pen. All right. This pencil I bought for 10 cents. I'm going to sell it for 25 cents. That's how most business owners figure out what they should charge. Okay. They upsell or they upcharge, excuse me. And then this pen, like I bought it for 25. I'm going to sell it for 50. Okay. I'm going to upcharge. But I'm going to ask, let's say I'm going to ask Linda, what would you pay for this pencil? You're like, why do I need a pencil? I would pay 5 cents for that pencil. Like, what the heck? 5 cents? Okay, I'm losing money on this. What about this pen, Linda? What would you pay for the pen? Like $1 maybe? Like, wow, it writes really well. It's smooth. It's a nice color. Okay, so first of all, I just found out by asking Linda that I am not charging enough for my pens. Okay, I also found out that I am losing money on these pencils. That's why no one's buying them. That's why they're sitting on my shelf. Okay. So I encourage you to survey your customers, your potential customers, your friends, ask them what would they pay for your product or service. Okay. And then I want you to get rid of anything that is not doing you any good. Get rid of the pencil. Pencil's gone. I no longer sell pencils. I am now the person in town known for these beautiful pens. Okay. I'm going to focus on this, and that's how I scale. That's how I grow. All right. Also, this was also mentioned in the chat there, but cut expenses, guys. I want you to download the last 12 months of all of your spending history. You're going to hate me for this. Okay. And I call it my burpees because burpees are really good for us, but we all hate to do them. I don't know anyone that likes them. I want you to download your expenses, and I want you to get a red marker, and I just want you to cross out things that you don't need. Subscriptions, wasted money, frivolous spending, whatever it is. I just want you to go through this exercise to increase your awareness about how you spend your money. Okay? Also, look into technology to help you leverage some of these other services that we no longer use. Okay? They have like answering services or those workflow or zaps or what they call them. Okay? So use technology to your advantage. And then this last one, over deliver on customer service. And I love this because you guys here are all small business owners. You have the ability to beat those big companies who are your competitors with this tiny little one-liner down there. Over deliver on your customer service, own your customers' actual experience with your company. Okay. Don't let them sit on hold for 20 minutes and get transferred 50 times. That's awful, right? We've all been there. So see how you can really make their day special. And that's going to increase profitability because it's going to increase your referrals, lead to new customers. It's going to increase your brand awareness in your communities. And it's really going to help you with that margin. Okay. And Linda says, to grow and scale, a service-based firm must engineer how to deliver products efficiently in order to maximize profitability. I love that, Linda. A focus on project profitability eliminates hidden scope creep because it requires the firm to clearly define the headcount and billing rates up front. And then tracking is what is actually delivered is possible. Yes. Thank you for that, Linda. That's exactly right, guys. Copy that, put that somewhere. Okay. Number 4, real quick, who is serving whom? I don't know if that's grammatically correct. Don't correct me if it's not. I just want to live in my space right now. But I want you to know if your company is causing you to work while you're on vacation, if you are missing out on family activities, you're not servicing your company, okay? Or sorry, I should say this. Your company is basically using you, okay? You need to pay yourself. You need to have this company work for you. So this could be in terms of financial know-all. It's on your balance sheet, owner equity, dividends that are paid to you at the end of the year, the return on your initial investment, and your salary, guys. I know too many women who are running these wonderful companies and they don't get a competitive salary, and that's not okay. All right. So if you're not taking home bonuses, if you're reinvesting back into your business, I call BS. Okay. We need to talk. All right. And this last one, oh my gosh, guys. On a scale of 1 to 10, write this down somewhere on your planner. How would you score the financial health of your business? And this is your gut feeling. As women, we have these gut feelings that we can really rely on. I've just given you the actual numbers and the reasons why you might feel like a 5 or a 6 or a 2, okay? But you need to pay attention to your gut. It is very powerful, okay? Now, next to this number that you just wrote down, I want you to put a goal number next to it, okay? So if you wrote a 5, I want you to put a goal of 7, okay? And in 3 months, you're going to revisit this and say, hey, what can I do or what did I do to get from a 5 to a 7? All right. We want to have goals here. All right. And the reason is because we want to one day sell your company so that you can retire and sit on the beach with me. And you want to get paid for your efforts. Okay. You guys are working really hard. I know it. I know it. I see it every day. And I want you to be rewarded for this. Okay. All right. So that is it. That's all I have. I know I just rambled and rambled, Linda. I'm sorry. I told you I would do this though. So I warned you. Okay. Some people ask, do I work with other women owners? And the answer, yes, of course. I have 3 different ways that we can work together if that's something that you want to do. If not, that's okay. But if you want a copy of this P&L, go ahead and email me and I will make sure that I get you the spreadsheet. Okay. So I want you to be able to look at your profit margins, look at your revenue, and make those decisions.